Uruguay has 4 cows for every person. Its national anthem is almost 5 minutes long, and its former president gave away 90% of his salary and drove a 1987 Volkswagen Beetle. This is a country that does almost everything differently and almost everything right. Here are 50 things nobody tells you about Uruguay before you retire there. 1. The name Uruguay comes from the Guarani language, meaning River of Painted Birds, a reference to the river that borders the country. 2. Uruguayans often call themselves Orientales, or Easterners, a nod to their location on the eastern bank of that same river. 3. Former President José Mujica became world famous as the humblest head of state on earth, giving away 90% of his salary, living on a small farm, and driving an old Volkswagen Beetle throughout his presidency. 4. In the mid-20th century, Uruguay earned the nickname the Switzerland of South America, thanks to its strong banking system, strict political neutrality, and generous social protections. 5. Uruguay is the most secular country in Latin America. Church and state have been fully separated since the early 1900s. Christmas is officially called Family Day, and Epiphany is officially Children's Day. 6. Locals are famously patient with foreigners. Even a few broken words of Spanish will get you genuine effort and directions from strangers on the street. 7. Uruguay has no official list of approved baby names. Parents can legally name their children almost anything, including, on record, Waterloo, Kiss, and Robin Hood. 8. Hitchhiking is a normal, safe, everyday practice on rural highways here, considered part of the national culture of mutual aid rather than something risky. 9. Drivers are unusually calm by Latin American standards. Constant honking simply isn't part of daily life on Uruguayan streets. 10. The Uruguayan Carnival is the longest in the world, running for more than 40 days, filled with street theater, drumming, and dance troupes known as murgas. 11. Over 60% of Uruguay's population belongs to the middle class, the highest rate of economic equality anywhere in the Americas, north or south. 12. Average life expectancy sits around 78 to 79 years, which locals credit to a relaxed pace of life, quality meat, and clean ocean air. 13. Uruguay generates about 98% of its electricity from renewable sources, primarily wind farms and hydroelectric plants. 14. It was the first country in the world to launch the One Laptop Per Child program, providing free computers and internet access to every student and teacher in public primary schools. 15. Military conscription doesn't exist here. The armed forces are entirely voluntary, freeing young people to focus on education and civilian careers. 16. Uruguay is consistently ranked the least corrupt country in Latin America. Locals genuinely trust their police, courts, and government institutions. 17. Uruguayan banks are known worldwide for strict confidentiality and reliability, a major reason wealthy investors across Latin America park their savings here. 18. Consumer protection law requires that anything you buy online or by phone can be returned within 5 days for any reason, even if it works perfectly. 19. Uruguay was the first country to legally ban free single-use plastic bags at checkout counters, replacing them with reusable fabric totes now common in every household. 20. It was also the first country in the world to enshrine access to water as a constitutional human right. A national referendum permanently banned the privatization of water resources. 21. The entire country runs on a single time zone, and daylight saving time was permanently abolished a few years ago, simplifying business and logistics nationwide. 22. Uruguay sits on an extremely stable tectonic plate. In the entire history of recorded observation, there has never been a destructive earthquake, volcanic eruption, or hurricane here. 23. Montevideo, the capital, is shaded by centuries-old plane trees and eucalyptus groves that provide natural relief from summer heat. 24. The Rio de la Plata estuary, where Montevideo sits, is the widest river mouth on Earth, 220 kilometers across at its widest point. 25. Thousands of bright green monk parakeets live wild in Uruguay's parks, building massive communal nests that locals feed and protect rather than remove. 26. Montevideo's public squares feature small wooden cabinets for free book exchanges. Take one, leave one, no cost, no questions. 27. There are no large dangerous predators left in Uruguay's forests. Spotting a wild puma today is considered a genuinely rare event. 28. The largest land animals you'll encounter hiking are harmless capybaras and rheas. The main safety concern is simply watching your step for local vipers. 29. Sport and commercial hunting of most wild bird and animal species is completely banned, with severe fines for poaching. 30. Uruguay has no mountains. Its highest point, Cerro Catedral, barely reaches 514 meters. The rest of the country rolls gently in open plains. 31. High-speed mobile internet reaches even the most remote pastures thanks to flat terrain and smart state investment. Farmers manage digital livestock records directly from the field. 32. In resort towns like Punta del Este, homes often skip street numbers entirely. Owners name their houses after seabirds, flowers, or memorable dates, and those names are used as the official postal address. 33. A monument to a football goal stands in Montevideo, marking the exact site where the very first goal in World Cup history was scored in 1930. 34. Uruguay's national anthem is the longest in Latin America. The full version runs nearly 5 minutes, closer to an operatic aria than a typical anthem. Only a 90-second excerpt is played at international matches to meet FIFA's time limits. 35. Every state museum in the country offers a free admission day each week, giving anyone access to history and art at zero cost. 36. Traditional gauchos, Uruguayan cowboys in bombacha trousers and felt hats, still work the countryside as skilled horsemen and living symbols of national identity. 37. Montevideo's waterfront promenade, La Rambla, stretches over 22 uninterrupted kilometers along the coast, used daily for walking, running, and simply watching the water. 38. Punta del Este is considered the top vacation destination for Latin America's elite and visiting Hollywood celebrities, transforming into a hub of yachts, parties, and high fashion every summer. 39. On the beach at Punta del Este sits a giant sculpture of fingers emerging from the sand, originally intended as a warning to swimmers about dangerous currents. 40. Just offshore lies Isla de Lobos, home to one of the largest sea lion colonies on Earth, with over 250,000 individuals living undisturbed. 41. In the seaside town of Atlantis, an eccentric Italian developer built a house shaped like an eagle's head in the 1930s, along with a nearby hotel designed to look like an ocean liner, complete with round portholes. 42. While dogs are officially banned from most public beaches, coastal towns have begun designating specific pet-friendly zones on the outskirts of resorts. 43. Some bus stops in progressive coastal areas are now equipped with solar panels and phone charging ports. 44. The coastal village of Cabo Polonio bans motor vehicles entirely and has no central electricity grid. Residents live among sand dunes, and the town's main landmark is a still functioning historic lighthouse. 45. At the end of summer, Uruguay's Atlantic coast glows with bioluminescence. Waves lit up in electric blue light from microscopic organisms disturbed by movement in the water. 46. Every winter, massive southern right whales migrate to Uruguay's coast to mate and raise their calves, visible directly from city piers and promenades. 47. Uruguay has 4 cows for every human resident, making it the world leader in cattle per capita. And the entire herd is tracked through a national digital monitoring system. 48. The country's sheep population is several times larger than its human population, and Uruguayan wool is exported to top textile mills across Europe. 49. Uruguayans compete directly with Argentina for the world's highest per capita beef consumption, eating 60 to 90 kilograms of meat per person annually. centered around the ritual of asado, slow-cooked meat over open coals. 50. Uruguayan confectioners once set a Guinness World Record for the largest dulce de leche dessert ever made, nearly half a ton, 2 meters wide, and given away free to 1,000 spectators after the record was confirmed. How Uruguay actually built all of this. None of what you just heard happened by accident. At the start of the 20th century, President José Batlle y Ordóñez pushed through sweeping reforms that turned Uruguay into one of the world's first true welfare states. He believed government existed to protect workers and guarantee social justice. And that belief reshaped the entire country. Uruguay legally established an 8-hour workday and mandatory weekly rest for every worker, decades before most of the developed world considered it. Women gained the right to vote and run for office in 1927, among the earliest in Latin America. The state built a pension and disability system, while most of the world hadn't even begun that conversation. Higher education became completely free at the University of the Republic, starting in the 1940s, opening professional careers to children from families who could never otherwise have afforded them. Church and state were formally separated under the 1918 Constitution, insulating the country from the religious conflict that has shaped so much of the region's history. Women gained the right to divorce on their own request without needing to justify why, at a time when that idea was radical almost everywhere on Earth. Uruguay became a global leader in protecting domestic workers, legally granting nannies, caregivers, and housekeepers the same contracts, 8-hour limits, health insurance, and pension rights as any office employee. The country abolished the death penalty permanently in 1907, one of the earliest nations on the planet to do so, and rebuilt its entire penal philosophy around rehabilitation rather than punishment. Today, Uruguay is the largest exporter of software per capita in all of Latin America, competing directly with far larger economies in the global tech market. It's investing heavily in green hydrogen production, building on a power grid that's already almost entirely renewable, with a national goal of full carbon neutrality by 2050. Even in parliament, Uruguayan politicians are expected to remain respectful and civil toward their fiercest rivals, a tradition of measured debate that has helped the country avoid the coups and revolutions that have destabilized so many of its neighbors. The government even runs a program called Ibirapita, providing free tablets and digital literacy training specifically for retirees, helping older Uruguayans make video calls, access government services, and stay connected online. And under the Uruguayan constitution, foreign citizens are guaranteed the exact same civil and economic rights as anyone born here. Newcomers can buy property, start a business, and work legally the moment their residency is approved. None of this came easily. Modern Uruguay was shaped largely by waves of European immigration in the late 1800s and 1900s. But the road here included brutal civil wars and the tragic disappearance of the country's original Charrua population. That difficult history is exactly why Uruguayans place such extraordinary value on peaceful dialogue, compromise, and mutual respect today. Locals will tell you the real secret to Uruguay isn't any single policy. It's genuine respect for the law and for each other. The honest downsides nobody mentions. Now for the part most videos about Uruguay skip entirely. Getting a Uruguayan passport doesn't end your paperwork. In some ways, it starts a new chapter of it. Uruguay legally separates the concepts of citizenship and nationality. You can live here for years, pass every exam, and become a citizen, but your passport will still list your country of birth as your nationality. This confuses border agents in Europe and the U.S. constantly, occasionally leading to naturalized Uruguayans being questioned, delayed, or even denied boarding at airports over a document that looks contradictory on paper. Then there's the cost. Uruguay is officially the most expensive country in all of Latin America. High import taxes and domestic monopolies mean everything from gasoline to groceries to a basic smartphone costs noticeably more here than almost anywhere else in the region. Bureaucracy moves at its own pace, summed up perfectly by the local phrase, mañana, tomorrow. Getting a certificate processed, connecting home internet, or finalizing residency paperwork can stretch on for months, and the entire country effectively shuts down every January for collective summer vacation, making it nearly impossible to resolve anything official during that stretch. There's also a real divide between the capital and everywhere else. Montevideo and Punta del Este represent one version of Uruguay: polished, prosperous, connected. The interior provinces are quieter and more modest, and residents there often still travel hundreds of kilometers to the capital for serious medical care, higher education, or career opportunities. Winters are colder and damper than most people expect from South America. Ocean proximity and icy winds off Antarctica make Uruguayan winters genuinely uncomfortable, and most homes have no central heating, and walls just a single brick thick. Indoor and outdoor temperatures can end up nearly identical, around 50 degrees Fahrenheit, leaving residents sleeping under multiple blankets and running up steep electric bills to stay warm. Cars are expensive and scarce, protected by heavy import tariffs that push prices well above what you'd pay in Europe or the US. Combined with some of the priciest gasoline in the region, a car here quickly starts to feel like a genuine luxury rather than a basic necessity. And finally, service culture simply doesn't exist the way it does elsewhere. Waiters aren't in a hurry. Store clerks won't chase you down to help. Deliveries run late and repair appointments can take weeks. For anyone used to fast, attentive service in a major city, Uruguay's relaxed approach to customer service can feel like a genuine test of patience. What it actually costs to retire here. We've covered the culture, the history, and the honest downsides. But if you're seriously considering Uruguay for retirement, you need real numbers, not just atmosphere. Let's start with where retirees actually settle. Montevideo remains the most popular choice for foreign retirees, particularly the neighborhoods of Pocitos and Punta Carretas. Coastal, walkable, filled with cafes, and within easy reach of quality private healthcare. A comfortable one-bedroom apartment in these areas typically rents for $700 to $1,100 a month. A full monthly budget for a single retiree, including rent, groceries, utilities, and healthcare, generally runs $1,800 to $2,500. Punta del Este, the glamorous resort town favored by Latin America's elite, is significantly more expensive. A reflection of its status as a summer playground for the wealthy, outside the peak December to February season, prices drop considerably, and a growing number of retirees choose to live there year-round specifically to enjoy the beach lifestyle at off-season rates, with monthly budgets typically ranging from $2,200 to $3,000. For retirees who want coastal living without Punta del Este's price tag, Piriápolis and Atlantida have quietly become popular alternatives. Smaller, quieter beach towns roughly an hour from Montevideo, where a comfortable lifestyle runs $1,300 to $1,800 a month. And for those seeking Uruguay's rural, gaucho country character, rather than coastline, towns in the interior like Colonia del Sacramento, a UNESCO World Heritage Site with cobblestone streets and Portuguese colonial architecture, offer some of the lowest costs on this list, often under $1,500 a month, alongside easy ferry access to Buenos Aires just across the river. Healthcare deserves special mention here. Uruguay's private healthcare system, known as mutualistas, is genuinely excellent by regional standards, with many doctors trained internationally. Comprehensive private health insurance typically costs $80 to $150 a month for a retiree, and covers a level of care that rivals much of Western Europe. Residency itself is refreshingly straightforward compared to the passport complications mentioned earlier. Uruguay doesn't require a minimum investment or a specific pension threshold the way Panama or Costa Rica do. Proving modest, stable income and passing a background check is generally sufficient to begin the process, and permanent residency can lead to citizenship after just 3 years for those who choose to pursue it. 5 for those living outside the country part-time. The honest math looks like this. A retired couple can live comfortably in most of Uruguay, excluding peak season Punta del Este, on $2,500 to $3,500 a month combined. That's higher than Panama, higher than Colombia, and noticeably higher than Vietnam or the Philippines. Uruguay was never going to be the cheapest country on anyone's retirement list, and it isn't trying to be. What it offers instead is stability that's genuinely difficult to find anywhere else in Latin America. No history of hyperinflation, no currency collapses, no coups. A functioning democracy with one of the highest qualities of life on the continent, near universal internet access even in rural areas, and a legal system that treats foreign residents almost identically to citizens from the moment residency is approved. For retirees prioritizing safety, healthcare, and long-term predictability over rock-bottom costs, Uruguay consistently justifies its higher price tag. For those chasing maximum stretch on a fixed income, this probably isn't the country at the top of the list. And honestly, Uruguayans themselves would likely tell you the same thing. That's the real Uruguay, not the postcard version, and not just the warning list either. It's a country that built an 8-hour workday before most of the world had electricity in every home. That gave women the vote in 1927. That abolished the death penalty over a century ago and still runs almost entirely on wind and water power today. It's also a country where a passport can confuse a border agent, where winter cold seeps straight through brick walls, and where mañana isn't just a word, it's a way of life. If you're planning a move to Uruguay, hopefully this gave you a real picture, not just a highlight reel. And if you already live there, you almost certainly have something to add in the comments. Thanks for watching Retirement Unlocked. See you in the next one.